In the distant reaches of the galaxy, peace had become the norm. An intricate network of alliances, trade agreements, and mutual cooperation bound the diverse species that populated the stars. Among them were the humans, remarkably integrated, remarkably docile. The great galactic civilizations no longer saw them as a threat, not as they once had in ages past. Humanity had risen from the ashes of its violent history, stepping into the broader galactic community not as warriors but as diplomats, scientists, and explorers. The tales of Earth's brutal survivalist past had faded into distant memory, and most believed the humans' capacity for violence had eroded with time. Species known for their martial prowess saw humans as a peaceful anomaly. They had not warred for centuries, choosing to foster advancements in technology, medicine, and galactic relations. When discussions arose about predators and warriors in the galaxy, humans were rarely mentioned. There were other species that fit those roles far more naturally, races bred in war, shaped by conflict. The humans, in contrast, were the diplomats who smoothed tensions, the mediators in disputes, and the scholars who contributed to peaceful innovation. But there were whispers. Rumors that beneath humanity's calm and civil exterior lay a history not yet fully erased. Old myths still floated around in the darker circles of galactic discourse. Tales of Earth as a death world, of humans battling not just each other but the unforgiving elements of their home planet. Most of the galactic elite dismissed these as relics of the past, stories with no bearing on the humans of today. But some could not let the thought go, could not shake the suspicion that humans might still possess the remnants of a savage past. A group of alien scientists and elite soldiers, from a battle-hardened race known for its centuries of war, decided to pursue these suspicions. They were part of a covert faction that thrived on discovering hidden truths, especially when those truths could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans had become too comfortable, too passive, they believed. It was time to test whether these once feared predators had truly become harmless. Their motivation stemmed not just from curiosity but from the deep-seated desire to understand if humanity could still pose a threat, if, under the right circumstances, the predator within could be awakened. The faction's scientists had studied human physiology, psychology, and history. They knew about Earth's violent past but had no evidence that it continued to influence the humans of today. Their aim was clear: to force humans into situations that would provoke their violent instincts, to see if the latent savagery could be reignited. If the experiment succeeded, the knowledge they would gain could be priceless. If humans were still capable of violence, they could potentially be used, or destroyed, before they became a threat. The abduction was swift and precise. A small group of humans was taken from their homes and workplaces across several planets. The selection was deliberate, targeting civilians from different backgrounds. There were no soldiers, no individuals with obvious combat experience. Scientists, teachers, engineers, ordinary people living ordinary lives. The aliens believed that if these peaceful civilians could be pushed to violence, it would confirm their hypothesis about humanity's latent potential for destruction. The humans awoke in an unfamiliar environment. There was confusion, but not panic. They were calm, assessing their situation rationally, trying to understand why they had been taken and by whom. Their collective response was measured, a reflection of the peaceful society they had become a part of. Some attempted to communicate with their captors, others tried to logically deduce the situation. There was no chaos, no outbreak of fear-driven aggression. The aliens, watching through hidden observation devices, were intrigued but disappointed. They had expected more fear, more panic. The humans were too cooperative, too calm. This initial response further solidified the aliens' belief that humanity had lost its edge. However, they were far from giving up. The trials were only beginning. The first set of trials was designed to observe human behavior under pressure. The humans were placed in controlled environments, isolated from one another, and subjected to conditions meant to test their endurance and survival instincts. The environments mimicked hostile planets, harsh terrain, minimal resources, unpredictable weather patterns, and hidden environmental dangers. The aliens expected this to unsettle the humans, to push them toward desperation. To the surprise of their captors, the humans did not immediately react with aggression or panic. Instead, they approached the situation logically and methodically. They began to explore their surroundings, using their intelligence and problem-solving skills to adapt. They shared resources, communicated when they could, and attempted to find solutions through cooperation rather than confrontation. The alien scientists were puzzled. These conditions were meant to break them down, to push them toward violence, but the humans remained calm and focused. The observers, growing frustrated with the lack of expected responses, decided to escalate the challenges. Environmental hazards were introduced: sudden storms, wild predators, and traps meant to increase the level of danger. They reduced the availability of food and water, hoping to provoke conflict among the humans, expecting them to turn on each other. But instead of falling into disarray, the humans adapted once again. They used their ingenuity to ration supplies, created makeshift tools from their surroundings, and even devised strategies to protect themselves from the simulated predators. Their cooperation was seamless, their problem-solving abilities impressive. There was no sign of the violence the aliens had hoped to witness. As the trials intensified, so did the humans' ability to adapt. With each new challenge, they found ways to not only survive but to thrive in the increasingly hostile environments. The aliens watched with a growing sense of frustration and confusion. These were not the results they had anticipated. Humanity was proving to be resilient, resourceful, and cooperative, but not violent. However, the faction was not ready to concede defeat. If these trials could not push humans to violence, then the next phase would have to. They were prepared to strip away the humans' last remaining comforts, to create scenarios so dire that no species could maintain civility. They would escalate until they found what they were looking for. The final escalation came when the humans were isolated completely. No more communication, no more shared resources, and the threat of starvation looming large. The predators became more aggressive, the weather conditions more extreme. The humans were pushed to their limits. But even then, the core of their response remained one of resilience rather than aggression. Some began to show signs of strain, exhaustion, hunger, and fear, but they still did not turn on each other. The aliens observed this with increasing disbelief. These trials, designed to expose the primal, violent instincts hidden within every species, had so far failed to break the humans' civil approach. The captors began to wonder if they had miscalculated, if perhaps humanity's violent nature had indeed been erased through centuries of peace and technological advancement. Could they have been wrong? One of the humans, a former survivalist, started to notice that something was off. The challenges weren't just random survival tests, but seemed carefully constructed to provoke a more primitive reaction. As the days passed, the signs became clear. The environments they were placed in weren't meant just to test their endurance. They were designed to strip away their civility, to force a response rooted in fear, desperation, and aggression. He shared his suspicions with the group. Initially, they dismissed him, holding on to the belief that this was simply a bizarre test or study, maybe even an experiment for some intergalactic diplomacy initiative. But as the dangers escalated, the truth began to dawn on them. They were being studied like lab animals. The realization settled over them like a storm cloud. They weren't just participants in a survival challenge, they were pawns in a much darker game. The group's dynamic shifted immediately. There was no longer any doubt that their captors were not simply observing their responses for benign purposes. The humans began to understand that they were being cornered into a situation designed to provoke their most primal instincts. And as the former survivalists predicted, their response would be far from what the aliens expected. The tension among the group began to grow. What started as cooperation and logical problem-solving slowly gave way to a simmering awareness of danger. Their environment was not just an obstacle to overcome but a threat to their very existence. The predators and environmental hazards grew more menacing with each passing hour, and it became clear that the passive approach wasn't going to ensure their survival anymore. It was time to fight back. The first signs of aggression appeared subtly at first. One of the humans, typically quiet and measured, grabbed a large stone and sharpened it against a rock, crafting a crude weapon. Others followed suit, fashioning spears from broken branches, makeshift knives from jagged rocks. Their calm cooperation faded into something sharper, more dangerous. The environment, once seen as a puzzle to be solved, now became their armory. Stones, branches, vines, all were potential tools of survival. The humans' ingenuity, previously demonstrated through teamwork and problem-solving, now manifested in a different form, the creation of weapons. The aliens observing the humans took note of this change. It was exactly what they had been waiting for, signs that humanity's capacity for violence wasn't lost, just dormant. What they didn't yet realize was that they had miscalculated the depth of that capacity. They saw the humans improvising weapons and assumed this was the beginning of a predictable descent into savagery. What they didn't understand was the level of strategy, coordination, and ingenuity humans were capable of when their survival instincts were fully awakened. As the trials continued, the simulated dangers grew. The humans were no longer facing mild threats but full-scale combat scenarios designed to push them to their breaking point. But instead of breaking, the humans adapted, faster and more aggressively than the aliens anticipated. The shift from defense to offense was subtle at first, a trap set for one of the simulated predators, a coordinated ambush to take down a larger threat. Then, it escalated. The humans began to act as a unit, using their environment not just for survival but for dominance. They started turning the simulations against their captors. The traps meant to ensnare them were dismantled and repurposed. The predators designed to hunt them became prey, lured into ambushes where they were outsmarted and destroyed. The humans worked with an intensity and coordination that stunned the alien observers. This wasn't the mindless violence they had expected. It was calculated, strategic, and shockingly efficient. The alien soldiers tasked with observing the trials were used to seeing species break down under stress, to lose control and descend into chaos. But the humans didn't break. They adapted. And as they adapted, their strength and resolve grew. What began as a series of trials for survival turned into a campaign of domination. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. The former survivalist led the group with a cold efficiency. Under his guidance, the humans turned the tables entirely. They began to understand the rhythms of the trials, the patterns in the alien simulations. They learned how to manipulate the environments to their advantage, how to exploit weaknesses in the alien designs. And as they gained the upper hand, something changed. The humans shifted from being prey in an experiment to predators hunting their captors. Once they fully understood the nature of the experiment, the humans began to go on the offensive. They moved through the trials with a newfound sense of purpose, not just surviving but seeking out ways to confront and defeat their captors. They began setting traps not just for the simulated dangers but for the aliens themselves. They studied their captors' methods, identified patterns in the observation drones, and used that knowledge to outsmart the alien overseers. The aliens, once confident in their superior combat skills and technology, were caught off guard. They had assumed the humans would eventually crack under pressure, that their aggression would be wild and uncontrolled. Instead, they found themselves dealing with a calculated, coordinated force. The humans, who had initially seemed cooperative and passive, now demonstrated a level of tactical ingenuity that surpassed the aliens' expectations. It wasn't long before the humans began using the aliens' own technology against them. They disabled observation devices, commandeered some of the equipment meant to control the environment, and even repurposed alien weapons when they could find them. The very systems designed to study and control them became tools for their rebellion. As the humans took control of their situation, the alien scientists began to realize they were losing control. What had started as an experiment to study humanity's latent violent tendencies had spiraled into something far more dangerous. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning, and they were learning. The aliens' confidence turned to fear as their own members started falling victim to human-devised traps. The hunters had become the hunted. Panic began to spread among the alien observers. They had expected to find evidence of humanity's violent past but were instead confronted with a stark reality. The humans were far more dangerous than they could have ever anticipated. Their violence wasn't mindless or primal, it was calculated, intelligent, and relentless. Despite the growing chaos, some of the alien scientists still believed they could contain the situation. They had underestimated the humans before, but they assumed they could regain control with enough force. They didn't yet realize the full extent of what they had unleashed. The humans weren't just capable of violence, they were masters of it, refined through millennia of survival on a planet that demanded adaptability and cunning. The experiment had gone far beyond its original purpose, and now the aliens were faced with a terrifying truth: they had awoken something they couldn't contain. And as the humans continued to adapt, the aliens realized that the true danger wasn't in humanity's ability to fight, it was in their ability to learn, to turn every challenge into an opportunity, and to dominate their environment with an efficiency that rivaled even the most war-hardened species in the galaxy. The humans, now fully aware of the nature of the experiment, took their survival game to a whole new level. They had observed the patterns, understood the layouts, and learned from every trial they endured. But more than that, they had started to comprehend how their captors operated, how the alien technology worked, and most importantly, how to exploit it. With their predatory instincts fully awakened, they set about dismantling the very fabric of the experiment. Slowly, methodically, they managed to infiltrate the alien base itself, gaining access to the control mechanisms that governed their trials. Piece by piece, they disabled crucial parts of the alien technology, cutting off communication and control systems that had allowed the aliens to manipulate the trials. With the aliens' eyes and ears effectively blinded, the humans now moved like shadows within the facility, turning the once imposing alien base into their own hunting ground. What had started as a game of survival had transformed into something else entirely. The humans were no longer prey, they were predators, and the alien scientists who had been observing them with detachment were now the ones hiding in fear. Panic set in among the aliens. Their once meticulously controlled experiment had spiraled beyond their grasp. They had expected violence, but not like this. Not the strategic, cold-blooded, and calculated violence that the humans were now demonstrating. The scientists, once so confident in their intellectual superiority and technological prowess, found themselves reduced to cowering in the shadows, unsure of when or where the next human strike would come. They had become the subjects of their own twisted experiment, and it was far more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. In their desperation, the alien scientists delved into the data they had been collecting, hoping to find some clue, some understanding of how things had gone so terribly wrong. As they combed through the information, they came across something that shook them to their core. The humans' violent reactions were not merely a response to the environment they had been thrust into. It was far deeper than that. The aggression, the cunning, the relentless drive to win, none of it was accidental. It was encoded into their very DNA, a product of millennia spent evolving on a world that had shaped them into apex predators. Earth, a planet considered by many in the galaxy to be a death world, had honed humans into survivors unlike any other species. Through natural selection, humans had developed an unmatched ability to adapt, overcome, and dominate their environment when pushed to the brink. The aliens had assumed that the humans' violent past was long behind them, buried under centuries of peace and progress. But the truth was far more disturbing. The capacity for violence had never left. It had simply lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to reawaken. This revelation filled the alien scientists with dread. The humans weren't just dangerous when provoked, they were the ultimate survivors, genetically engineered by their planet's harsh conditions to rise above any challenge, to defeat any foe, and to do whatever it took to survive. Their peaceful exterior had merely been a veneer, a mask hiding the apex predator that lurked beneath. The scientists realized, far too late, that they had triggered something they couldn't control. In a last-ditch effort to regain some semblance of control, the alien faction made a desperate move. They unleashed their most advanced war machines, towering constructs of destruction designed to crush any threat with overwhelming force. These machines were the pride of their military technology, weapons that had won countless wars against some of the galaxy's most fearsome species. But they were no match for the humans. Fully embracing their predatory nature, the humans dismantled the machines with brutal efficiency. What was supposed to be the final blow to subdue the humans turned into yet another demonstration of their lethal ingenuity. The humans didn't just fight, they strategized, adapted, and exploited every weakness in the alien machines. Using the very tools and weapons they had scavenged from the trials, they turned the machine's own power against them, taking them down one by one. The tables had been completely turned. What was once an experiment had now become a massacre. The alien soldiers, trained in the art of war, were outmatched and outsmarted at every turn. The humans moved with a precision and ruthlessness that no one had anticipated. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were hunting, and the alien soldiers were their prey. Realizing they had no other options, the remaining alien scientists attempted to negotiate. They had lost too many of their own to continue this senseless experiment. In a final act of desperation, they offered the humans freedom. They would be allowed to leave the facility, unharmed, if they agreed to cease the hostilities and let the aliens go in peace. It was an offer made out of fear, not out of goodwill, and the humans saw it for what it was, a last, pitiful attempt to escape. But the humans had been pushed too far. There was no going back. The betrayal, the trials, the manipulation, it had all brought them to this point, and now there was no room for mercy. They rejected the offer, seeing the alien scientists not as diplomats or negotiators but as prey. With cold precision, they delivered the final blow, ending the experiment once and for all. As the alien base fell silent, one final message was sent out into the galaxy, a warning. The scientists, realizing the gravity of what had transpired, knew they couldn't keep this a secret. They had to warn the others. They had to make it known that humans were not the peaceful species they appeared to be. Beneath their calm exterior, beneath their diplomatic front, lay an unmatched capacity for violence. It wasn't just learned behavior. It was written into their DNA, shaped by a planet that demanded nothing less than absolute survival. The message spread quickly. Across the galaxy, governments and species took note. The experiment had confirmed the rumors, the myths that had once been dismissed as exaggerated stories. Humans were the galaxy's deadliest killers. They weren't to be underestimated. And they certainly weren't to be provoked. What the galaxy once saw as a peaceful, cooperative species had been revealed to be something far more dangerous. The humans had proven that when pushed, they wouldn't just survive, they would dominate. And the galaxy would never look at them the same way again.